We're going to start promptly at 1 o'clock, which I have here on my clock, and those who roll in will just have to catch up with us. I'm Sarah Lucina. I'm the lead at the Active Aging Society and a longtime member of the Active Aging research team at UBC. And for those who are here at our Move and Connect webinar for the first time, welcome. We've held a handful of webinars in the past, and we're thrilled to kick off our 22-23 webinar series with our topic on civic participation. Our webinars, as those who have been here before know, are designed to engage our more than 7,500 older adults across BC who have taken our Choose to Move program, and all older adults who are keen to keep healthy and active through physical activity. Through these webinars, we bring some of the best ways to keep active and socially connected, and we hope that we inspire you here today with the topic on civic participation. And we know that these webinars are also hugely helpful and valued by our community partners who deliver Choose to Move. We have many staff from senior centers here today, from neighborhood houses, our YMCA, and our recreation centers. So thanks for joining us today. Our webinars, along with our Choose to Move program, are made possible because of the research led by Drs. Heather McKay and Joni Sims-Gould and all of the committed staff of the Active Aging research team. And I just wanted to acknowledge that here, and also because of the generous support from the BC Ministry of Health. Before we dig into our topic today, and before I introduce you to our speakers, I want to acknowledge the territory upon which I am joining this call. As a step towards reconciliation, I'm acknowledging that I'm joining from the green and blue beauty of the unceded and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. Please take a moment now to think about the lands upon which you are joining this webinar. And you can learn more about the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples globally through nativeland.ca, and I'll put that in the chat in a moment. I invite all of you to learn more about your land that you're joining from, and the knowledge keepers who have protected that land for time immemorial. I also invite you to learn more about the 94 calls to action put forward in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We will provide access to that report and the resources that we share after the webinar. In terms of housekeeping, I just want to encourage everybody here today to be patient with one another. We have lots of people who are joining Zoom maybe for the first time. Yeah, be patient as we all navigate this technology. If you have questions that you want to pose to some of the presenters, you're welcome to add those into the chat. I know we received many questions in advance, so I'll be putting those forward at the end of the speaker sessions. So a little bit about this topic. As you know, the Active Aging Society promotes the health of older adults by creating opportunities to stay physically and socially active. And thinking expansively about how we can keep active in older age, we wanted to bring this topic of civic engagement to the fore. So, you know, everything from voting and volunteering to sharing your voice on issues that matter to you. And there's ample research to show that volunteering can be personally very meaningful and engaging, but it can also lead to enhanced physical activity, cognition, and mental health. But we know that not everybody has equal opportunity and access to volunteer opportunities. So we're hoping that the discussion today can inspire a few new ways to think about volunteering in your community at whatever stage of life you're in. And we're also hoping that, you know, with all the different folks gathered here today on this topic, we can start to think about some of the barriers and opportunities to volunteering and how we can maybe address those. So just to review our agenda, we're going to start off with our featured presentation by Zahra Esmail, and then we're going to go forward with our panel discussion where we have Marlene White and Darlena Yacaro, two champion volunteers from our Choose to Move community, and they'll share a little bit about their experience in volunteering. And as I said, as time permits, we'll get to a few questions at the end for our presenters to address. And we also will break up a little bit of the talking with Edda, a long-standing activity coach for our Choose to Move program. She's based at Mount Pleasant Neighborhood House for Choose to Move, but she's also the founder and CEO of Quantum Care, an innovative educational coaching and consultancy firm where she helps bring therapeutic movement into the daily lives of her clients. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to welcome Zahra Esmail, who is the CEO of Vantage Point, a nonprofit organization that exists to support other nonprofits across BC to increase their knowledge, connections, and impact. She's worked in the volunteer and charitable sector for over 15 years. She's the chair of the BC Poverty Reduction Advisory Committee, and she's also on the board of the Lookout Foundation and Fresh Roots Urban Farm Society. And she's also a mentor with the Dress for Success Professional Women's Group. Zahra was recognized as one of Business in Vancouver's 40 Under 40 in 2019. And nominated for the YMCA Women of Distinction awards in 2022. I'm thrilled to welcome you here, Zahra. Thank you so much for taking the time. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you to all of you who are here with us today. I always feel a little awkward when I'm asked to talk at people on a screen for 15, 20 minutes, so I hope I will not bore you, and please be patient, and I'm sure you'll all be very kind. My name is Zahra Esmail. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm also joining from the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people from the Vantage Point offices. This is the land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm actually barefoot right now and grounding my feet on, well, the floor, not the earth, but very, very grateful to be standing in these occupied lands and to have the opportunity to raise my family and live, work, and build my own self in these spaces. I am, as was mentioned by Sarah, I'm the CEO of Vantage Point, which I'll speak about a little bit later, but I actually want to share a little bit more about you, about me with you, about who I am personally and how volunteerism has shaped my life. I am the child of immigrants. My parents are Indian origin. I'm Indian origin, and we come from the state of Gujarat in India, but both of my parents were actually born in East Africa. My mom was born in Tanzania and my dad was born in Kenya. My dad's parents were also born in Kenya. And though we've been far removed from India for a long time, the ties there are quite strong. And this journey of migration in my family, I think that there's been some learning that's passed down to me through that, which has been really, really useful. I was born in the place that's known as Calgary, and we moved over to Burnaby when I was in 3rd grade, when I was 8 years old. I spent most of my formative years in Burnaby and then had the opportunity to move overseas for a few years to do international development work. And then my return to Canada was in Toronto. And then in 2016, I was lucky enough to move back home, and I now reside in Vancouver. So that's just to give you a little bit of context about my life journey. But from the time I was quite little, I knew that I wanted to work in the not-for-profit sector. My first volunteer opportunity was at a seniors care home in Burnaby, close to where I lived, when I was about 12 years old, maybe 12 to 14, somewhere in that age range. In this role, I would play cards, read, and play games with seniors. I believe it's where I learned how to play cribbage and improved my math skills quite a lot. My volunteer experience at the seniors care home, it helped me, and it also helped the people who were living there with loneliness, with mental stimulation. It made me feel connected and useful, and I like to hope that I had a bit of a positive impact on others. And I think that was a very formative experience that helped me understand the power of volunteerism and the mutual benefit as well. I next volunteered when I was building my career. My next significant role was with Hope International, and I was an assistant leader on a learning trip to India with a group of Canadians from the ages of 20 to 70. The lessons and growth from this volunteer experience were entirely different from my first, but equally important in terms of impact on my life. I was very passionate and committed to wanting to do international development work, and this was a way for me to get my feet on the ground and understand what working overseas might look like, and how much support was required for diverse groups of people to go overseas. And there's a lot about my career and my perspectives on international development that changed, but I will get into that a little bit later. I worked overseas for a few years, during which time there was a significant gap in my volunteerism. I was lucky enough to do a fellowship in India. I worked for some time in Bangladesh, and then I managed programs in Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, Colombia, the Philippines, and India while I was based in Toronto. So the overseas lifestyle, you know, being traveling a lot, I really couldn't commit to a solid volunteer opportunity. But after I moved back to Canada, which was in Toronto, I volunteered with a community connections program supporting newcomers to practice English and develop their confidence so that they could better integrate into their new communities, reduce isolation, and sometimes seek employment. I think this was really important to me because while my parents were both fluent in English, my grandmother and a lot of my aunts and other people in my family really couldn't fully integrate into Canadian communities because of the language barrier. So finding an opportunity that really resonated with me and tapped into my personal experience through my family was quite rewarding. And it was such a great way to use my time. I felt quite fulfilled when I was volunteering with the Community Connections program. Once my daughter was born, which was in 2014, I did take a short break from volunteering. She was a very attached child and didn't give me a lot of space to do other things. But then I got involved with a few organizations as a board member once, you know, she was a little bit older and I had some more bandwidth. So this included my current opportunity right now, or my current role on the Lookout Foundation board. I also am a board member with the Fresh Roots Urban Farm Society. Both of these opportunities tap into work that I've done in my past. The Lookout Foundation, you know, was really important for me to join because when I lived in Toronto for 3 years, I was the general manager of Eva's Phoenix, which is a shelter for homeless and at-risk youth. And when I moved to Vancouver, I was looking to stay connected with that incredible work that's done related to housing and homelessness. And Lookout was a great fit for me there. I sought out Fresh Roots Urban Farm Society when I actually switched from being the executive director of the South Vancouver Neighborhood House and the Markle Neighborhood House to my current role at Vantage Point, because Vantage Point is a capacity building organization. So we work, it's work I truly believe in, but we work with other nonprofits. We don't work directly with the community, and neighborhood houses obviously do. And so I sought out this opportunity at Fresh Roots because I knew the organization. They had been a partner at South Vancouver Neighborhood House. My daughter had participated in a program there, and I knew that that would allow me to keep my close connection with community and feeling that I was still part of, you know, direct community development and action. So, you know, the picture I'm trying to paint here is that every opportunity I found, it was for the contributions I could make, but it was also for the gap or the need that it filled in my life to seek out these opportunities and experiences. I'm also a volunteer with Dress for Success in their professional women's group as a mentor. And again, I was able to be matched with an incredible woman who actually works at a neighborhood house and support her to find her feet and figure out her next phase in her career and her goals. And I am just about to confirm another board role with an international development focused nonprofit. I did need a bit of a break after working overseas in international development areas. The power dynamics between, for me as a Canadian person, and the power I held over communities when I was working overseas made me quite uncomfortable. So when seeking out this role, I really asked honest questions about power and about privilege and about decolonization. And I was able to find an organization that seemed to match my values. And so I'm very excited about getting involved in that way. So volunteerism has played a different role for me in every stage of my life. Each time I volunteer, I look for an opportunity to contribute to a cause or issue that I care about, while also seeking an opportunity to learn and grow. And hopefully provide a bit of the unique skills that I might have to help the organization with where it's at. In my view, volunteering has to be a symbiotic relationship of mutual benefit wherein everybody wins. So professionally, switching away from my volunteer experience and speaking a little bit more about my work experience, I have worked at organizations that rely heavily on volunteers for most of my career. My first full-time job was with the YMCA of Greater Vancouver, where I supported the VP, the Vice President of Development, with a fundraising initiative. One of the groups I spent the most time with was a group of older adults who were part of the Y's Endowment Fund Committee. Seeing these older adults finding ways to contribute to the long-term stability and future and growth of the Y was quite inspiring. They were energetic and their volunteer role was part of their identity. This was actually my first full-time job, and they were very patient with me as I learned how to take minutes. I was horrible at it. I had to get a lot of guidance, but I was able to really understand the value that this group of very dynamic and very committed volunteers had on the Y, which was quite exciting. Another experience I had was working as development coordinator at Junior Achievement of BC, where many of the workshops for children and youth on business and entrepreneurship were offered by skilled volunteers. At JABC, I worked closely with a volunteer committee to plan and execute the Business Laureates of BC Hall of Fame Gala, and also supported the volunteer-driven Major Gifts Committee, which again was a bit of a fundraising focus. After that, while I was overseas, I did engage with various groups of volunteers who would go on placements to various countries with the aim to contribute. Again, this is a topic for a future webinar because there's a lot that I learned about power dynamics and who has voice and who volunteerism is for, which I think is also very important to keep in mind when volunteering in Canada. Really, who is benefiting and why are we doing the activities that we're doing? So let me fast forward now a few years to when I became the ED of South Vancouver Neighborhood House, or SVNH. I worked there from 2016 to 2021. SVNH relies on over 500 volunteers who, to name a couple of contributions, participated in peer-led activities. They volunteered at food distribution centers. They volunteered as part of the massive youth network at SVNH, and they did so much more. Volunteering was very central to the heart of SVNH because the model was focused on local community development through the leadership of neighbors, of people who actually lived in that community. Without volunteers, SVNH, and I personally feel most neighborhood houses, and I'm really grateful you'll hear from a couple of people who are active volunteers at 2 other neighborhood houses later today, but without volunteers, a lot of these neighborhood houses would be a shadow of what they are, because they are organizations that connect and provide much needed services and truly create a sense of belonging. Speaking of South Vancouver and South Vancouver Neighborhood House, it's not always easy to create a sense of belonging in such a diverse region. South Vancouver is made up of 3 subsets, 3 neighborhoods, and it has the highest density of newcomers of any Vancouver neighborhood. It has 80% racialized people who live in the community, and just the most diversity that I've seen in many places, in any place that I've lived or worked. And it is through the power of volunteers, meeting, engaging, providing ideas, thinking about ways to bring more people in because they really live in the neighborhood. They know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And it's really the volunteers who have created this community and become leaders in the community through various degrees of participation. This is especially true for senior volunteers. Their contributions keep them active, engaged, valued, and connected. Their contributions and guidance also help SVNH build the best programs that work for the largest percentage of neighborhoods possible. Now at Vantage Point, we do a vast majority of our work through skilled volunteers that we refer to as knowledge philanthropists, or KPs for short. Our KPs deliver majority of our workshops. They lead a portion of strategic planning and custom engagements for the not-for-profit clients that we work with, and they support convening activities in a variety of ways. Our relationship with KPs is symbiotic. We, along with our community, receive significant benefits, and the KPs do as well. Sometimes I have to ask them again and again, what is it that they're getting out of this engagement with Vantage Point? And it's been told to me several times that they feel that investing as volunteers in Vantage Point allows them to reach so many more nonprofits than they could on their own, and to really feel like they're taking their skills and helping others to grow in areas that perhaps they need a little bit of extra support. So, you know, there's so many different styles and models and modes of volunteerism, but it's really important to find what works for you and to keep doing it, because volunteering is really the backbone, I think, of a lot of our communities. I believe that volunteering enables people to feel a sense of belonging and gives them an opportunity to share their skills and strengths with others. I know that that's been the case for me. I believe that that's true regardless of age, background, or lived experience. My daughter is 7, turning 8 soon, and I cannot wait until she comes to me and says, "Mommy, I found something I want to do with my free time. I want to volunteer. I want to do it for this reason." It's going to be one of my happiest days. So I'd like to take a moment now actually to share about my mother. She's 77 years old. She was a nurse for her whole career. She's always been a very active person. She's very hands-on and she likes to do. And she lives in New Westminster, very close to a senior center. And up until COVID hit, that senior center was where she would spend at least 2, if not 3 days a week. She volunteered for a peer mentorship program. She realized she's more of a doer than a listener, so it wasn't the best fit for her. But the training that she went through and the community and connections that she built was huge. And the fact that she was curious about something and got to try it and learn from it. At her, I think at that age, she must have been 72 or so. It challenged her and it kept her engaged, and that was really wonderful to see. She tried volunteering at a thrift store, and she did that for quite a while. She tried volunteering in the kitchen, where she was able to help with the food preparation for the meals, for the community meals. And now that COVID is sort of in a different phase, she is looking for a way to get back involved, because it truly gave her something to structure her weeks around, and she quite misses it. So that, yeah, I mean, I think about my mom a lot, because I do see a lot of people like her who oftentimes, without that engagement in something that makes them feel valued and where they can really put a lot of the energy, because believe you me, my mom has a lot of energy and she needs somewhere to spend it. And she's got a lot of value that she can contribute as well. So I know that for her, there have been social, mental, and physical health benefits to volunteering. I also think about the Seniors Hub Council at South Vancouver Neighborhood House, and it was a mode of a governance of the seniors programs at SVNH, where again, I kind of touched on it before, but staff were in a very critical role of supporting programming, but staff didn't lead all of the programs. And they didn't design all of the programs. A lot of that happened from the Seniors Hub Council and from the leadership of seniors who lived in South Vancouver and who knew, like I said earlier, what was needed in the community. And seeing that leadership and the ability also for some of the younger staff members and community members to continue to give the older adults in our community some reverence and some deep respect, and trusting their wisdom was really beautiful to see, because sometimes I think as communities evolve, that can get lost, and it really shouldn't, in my view, it shouldn't get lost. It's very critical, and all of us have a lot that we can learn from people who have lived on this earth for a lot longer than we have. Sarah, how am I doing for time?
You are doing great. You can take a few more minutes. We have Ada coming on at about 1:30.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. It is. I have to just own it. It's one of the challenges I have when I don't have a crowd in front of me to learn, you know, sort of how the energy is. But
it's hard to read the Zoom room. No, you're doing great. Okay. Yeah, right. Continue.
Thanks for the pause. Thank you. So I do want to share, I mean, I wanted to talk a little bit about the example of learning from Indigenous elders that we've had at many of the workplaces that I've been involved with, but particularly at South Vancouver Neighborhood House, there's been a very organic way that the team started to connect with elders. It wasn't because we had it on a strategic plan or it was a goal for the organization. It honestly happened through relationships. But there was such a level of openness of the team there that a lot of these elders that we connected with felt that we were worth their effort, and they saw the opportunity of what could be done. And they, I believe, saw an organization that was willing to make mistakes and be vulnerable and approach the learning related to truth and reconciliation with humility, and show each other some grace as well. And so over the last maybe 3 or 4 years, there's been a complete transformation in the culture of South Vancouver Neighborhood House in terms of how I don't work there anymore, but how South Vancouver Neighborhood House shows up as an organization that is living values related to truth and reconciliation. And of course, it's not something that's ever going to be done, but none of that would have happened without the elders investing their time and interest in us and sharing their wisdom. And they really honestly did so primarily as volunteers, which we were very grateful for. Another thing I wanted to share is, there's an active conversation right now about whether or not volunteers need to be compensated. And it's a hot issue, and I understand, there's a lot of privilege that is required to be a volunteer, and not everyone in a community is in a position to give their time, and particularly for free. And we always need to be respectful of where people are and what they need, and they will tell you whether or not, or you will tell us, but people need to communicate what's in scope for them and what's not. But I really think it's important not to make assumptions. And when I lived in Haiti, after the earthquake that happened 10 years ago, I think, Haitians went onto the street and they were helping each other, and they were clearing up rubble, and they were pulling people out from under buildings, and they were doing what I think any of us would do. They were showing up as neighbors and as community members, and there was no personal gain, there was no incentivization. They were doing it because it was the right thing to do and because they cared about their community. Very shortly thereafter, a lot of international aid groups went into Haiti for earthquake relief and started to monetize some of this work that was being done on its own. So, for example, if Haitians the local population were able to fill a wheelbarrow full of rubble, or they would bring it in to this particular group, and they would be given 100 grams of grain or 100 of the local currency. So that went on for a while, and I understood why. There was a need for people to have food and money. But this program, this international program, ran out of resources and left. And guess what? There was still rubble on the road. But now the local community had been conditioned to only clean up their own community when there was some monetary compensation. And in some ways, it killed the spirit of volunteerism, which I think all of our communities need, because no external organization or no organization period is going to forever be able to look after all the needs of community. We all need to show up and support one another. So, on this topic of volunteerism, it's just one that's always on my mind when we're trying to create programming, obviously trying to be respectful and meet people where they are, but it's also very important to think about what is the impact going to be in 3 months, in 3 years, in 30 years, when we create something new. And speaking of that, we've just gone through our own crisis. I think the whole globe has, with the pandemic. And because of safety, because of fear, because of many things moving online, a lot of volunteers have stopped supporting community. And no judgment, I think I might have been one of them if things hadn't switched online for me at some of the board tables I sit at. But the community needs volunteers, and the sector needs volunteers. The not-for-profit sector absolutely is facing a loss, and it's creating, I'd say, a little bit of a crisis in terms of our ability to do the programming that we know that our communities need from us. But of course, COVID has given us all a really good opportunity to reflect and consider where we actually want to be spending our time. But before I wrap up my comments here, I think what I'd like to say is just that there is urgency, and a call to action would be to look for the right opportunity for who you are and what you want today, and go out and find it, because I guarantee it's out there. There is a perfect volunteer opportunity that matches you where you are and with what you want to give. And if you look for it, it'll come. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with all of you today, and I look so forward to the panel discussion. One final call, just before I pass the mic over to Sarah again, is to say that, if volunteering isn't the thing that you have time for, because it can be a time commitment, There are other ways to get involved and have your voice heard. Just around the corner, we have local elections, municipal elections that are coming up. So if not by volunteering and door knocking as an actual volunteer, please get out to the polls and vote. Your voices are important, your voices matter. Whether it's through volunteering or voting, it's our way to show our care for our communities, our concern for our cities. And it's in our power, and it's, in my opinion, our responsibility to do so. One further call would be, if there's a newcomer you know in your neighborhood, to knock on their door and have a conversation with them about municipal politics, or anybody who you think might benefit from a conversation. Because as somebody who tries to keep myself informed, it's very hard, particularly at the municipal level, which party is what and who stands for what. And it can be really helpful to just have a chat with somebody, and that can be all the push that your neighbor might need to go out and get to the polls. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much.
Zahra, that's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your journey in volunteerism and how it's shown up in your personal life as well as your professional life, and for those really important calls to action. I think for those who want to volunteer, there's space and opportunity for them to do that, and that call to vote. That's another really, really critical way of engaging in our communities and ensuring that, you know, our needs are being reflected in how our cities are being designed, and our governments are supporting us. So I'm really looking forward to some more Q&A with you. I have jotted down a few questions I hope we'll have time for. We need to move, because that's what we do here, and movement is so important, and being in our body is so important. So I introduced you earlier to Etta. Etta, please take us away with a little bit of movement.
Welcome everyone. So just to kind of say hi to your buddies, welcome your breath in, and just move your shoulders. So we've been sitting, and you can even like kind of move your hips as you are just on your seats. And then once you feel like you had a bit of a movement, let's find that seat of your choice, where your spine is nice and long. And if you're in diverse abilities, and if your spine cannot be straight and long, please find that seat where you are feeling comfortable. And then let's have a deep breath in together. And then as you exhale, relax your shoulders. And a couple more. Inhale. And exhale, this beautiful day, coming together on this meaningful webinar. Inhale one more time. And as you exhale, bring your chin towards the chest and allow your head to get nice and gently hanging here. And everything that I'm going to be offering is a suggestion. We have different bodies, different abilities. Please take it within that and adjust it as you need it. With your next inhale, bring the head to the left shoulder and allow the right side of your neck to nicely stretch. Maybe breathe in. And as you exhale, bring the chin towards the chest. Relax your head. And with your next inhale, bring the head to the right shoulder and feel your stretch on the neck on the left side. And with your exhale, bring the chin towards the chest, relax your head. And if you can, let's make circles, gentle, small circles with your head. And as your head goes towards the back, please don't push too much. Just go to the other shoulder and gently bring it forward. And when it is nice and slow, we get to feel if there's any tension, any pain, then you can pause and breathe. You can even bring a hand and give yourself a nice massage. And next time your chin comes towards the chest, you're gonna make the circles the opposite side, no rush. And keep breathing, even if you are not doing the movements with us, as the breath is medicine. Bring that oxygen in and relax. One more breath here. And as your chin comes towards the chest, let's gently bring the head to a neutral position and just allow the spine to settle. And let's come to our shoulders. Let's roll them nice and forward and up towards our ears. And maybe with an exhale, let's do 2 more times. Inhale, forward and up. And exhale. One more time. Inhale, forward and up. And exhale. Shake those arms, shake those hands. And then have your arms parallel to the ground. Let's inhale and make fists. And exhale, release. Inhale, you can even pull as if you're pulling a weight. And exhale, push. Inhale, bring the shoulder blades together, and as you exhale, push. Beautiful. And inhale. And relax your arms. And now bring your arms overhead, circle your arms, reach, reach, reach. And maybe with the right arm towards the sky, right hand towards the sky, and then left hand, just stretch your side body. Reach, 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 your rib cage, your sitting bones. And a couple more times here. And then bring your hands to your knees. And if you think that we cannot go for a walk, you can always walk as you are sitting. So make sure your core is engaged. Bring the belly button in just a little bit so you have a nice strong core and your back is supported. And if you can, just gently lift the right knee up and then bring it down, left knee, as if we are going for a walk. And you can feel actually your muscles are moving. Feel your IT band on the sides of your leg and your femur bone. Everything is nicely moving. Let's inhale and exhale. And if this is not working for you, you can always just lift your heels up and then come on your tippy toes. Yes. And then come. You can stretch your legs and rotate your ankles and to the other side. Move that blood, move that breath, and the other side. And feel your muscles. You can, if there's any pain, discomfort, or if you cannot do this moment, you can always massage your legs just to help yourself and bring the feet down. Thank you so much for joining, and let's keep choosing to move as we do that in our programs and throughout your day. And movement is also really good for our brains and overall health. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. That was wonderful to break up all the sitting with a bit of movement and a reminder to be, in our bodies and present. And thank you so much for bringing your skill to our webinar today. So I'm thrilled to turn it over to Darlena Yakero and Marlene White. It was thrilling for me, along with my colleagues, to put out a call to our Choose to Move community and to many of our activity coaches like Etta across the province who are in regular touch with older adults who are keen to keep active. And through that call, we put out a call for volunteers to tell us their stories about how they've engaged in their community and how that has brought health to their lives. And we were also struck by the many submissions we received through email and through our online Google form. And I'm only able to bring you Darlena and Marlene today, but throughout the next couple of weeks, my colleagues and I will pop up a few more stories of others who have just done such exceptional work in their community. So we're going to have a little bit of a panel discussion with Darlena and Marlene. And I'm going to pose 3 questions to them over the next kind of 15 minutes or so. And we'll kind of flow from there and incorporate Zahra as we come to the end of the panel discussion. So first and foremost, Darlena and Marlene, we'd love to know a little bit more about you and where you volunteer, some of your recent volunteer experiences, and just who you are overall. Tell us as much as you would like. And I'm going to start first with you, Darlena.
Okay, nice to meet everyone today. Anyway, my name is Darlena Icaro, and I'm a 75-year-old and a retired nurse and also a dance instructor. After the death of my 27-year-old daughter, I was depressed for quite a while. And when I started feeling better, I enrolled line dancing classes at Mount Pleasant Community Center. And in January 2013, and in April 2013, I had an opportunity to volunteer as a line dancing instructor at Mount Pleasant Neighborhood House. And I was able to reach out to other elderly friends that I had, and they all came to Mount Pleasant. And so the membership rose up. And from there, I also started to lead a pole walking club once a week. And it added my volunteer, and then I also signed up to help out with home support group. As a nurse, I feel like I could contribute some tips on how to care for elderly that some of the group has taken care, like taking care of their parents. And during the pandemic, I had an opportunity to join and learn via Zoom about Choose to Move at Home program. So from there, I called many people to join us. And during the meeting, before the meeting, I also phoned them to remind them to come and, be active. And in Mount Pleasant, they have this Vancouver neighborhood small grant. So they also introduced me there, and then every year I apply for it. But the most important one is the line dancing. I teach line dancing, like workshop.
Right.
And what else?
Well, we can come back, Darlena, to a little bit more about how you volunteer and how it has brought health to your life. But it's clear, you're volunteering in many ways, and Mount Pleasant Neighborhood House sounds like your anchor, right? They're an organization.
Yeah, I've been there for 9 years now, almost 10. So, and I love volunteering. I feel like it's fulfilling my life, and I have purpose, and I enjoy watching people who is happy because I help them.
Right. And then it's motivating, right, to keep going when you see those benefits to those you're supporting, and you're getting enjoyment out of it as well.
Yes.
And to do maybe more than one thing. You started as the line dancing instructor, and then you're doing the pole walking, and then you're a Choose to Move activity buddy, and you don't have to just do one. You can kind of move around.
I actually applied a small grant, and the project is like a birthday gift drop off. So
right.
in my list, and I also posted, encouraged everyone to sign up. Every month on their birthday, I pack a gift and deliver it to their doorstep. And some of them actually commented that I'm glad somebody remember me.
Well, and like, what a great opportunity to kind of meet a need in your community, to leverage and seek out those granting opportunities and come up with something creative. And Marlene, I know you and Darlena have a lot in common in terms of how you're volunteering. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Marlene, and how you're volunteering in your community?
Okay, Marlene, and welcome to everybody who's listening. I'm not used to this audience business, but can't see you, so I'm not scared. I actually started volunteering when I was quite young, and the first experience of that was I had a pretty bad allergy, and the specialist that I saw said, "Oh, can I use you as an experiment for part of my paper that I'm writing?" So he strapped all these metal discs to my back, and it made me stay there in it for 48 hours and peeled it off and decided, yep, you're allergic to that and you're allergic to
Oh dear.
But it was so itchy, I can't tell you. But I've sort of done that through my life. I've done quite a bit of medical volunteer things. But
And Marlene, you were a nurse when you were working, and I understand, at Collingwood Neighborhood House, you brought that kind of caregiving aspect to your role as in your friendly phone calling, and also as a Choose to Move activity buddy. Do you want to tell me more about that?
Yes, with the Choose to Move, there was one woman who couldn't hear that well, and she didn't have a computer either, so she did it by phone. So we connected after, and she asked me to call her every time there was another session because she would forget. So we got quite bonded. It was really, really nice. I never saw her in person, but it was great. And I also went through that program twice myself.
Mm-hmm.
I came to the volunteering at this point in my life, a few years back now, is coming out of a pretty bad depression, and I'd been sort of laid up for quite a bit. I had 2 back surgeries, and so that, I was kind of stagnant, I thought, and didn't quite have the nerve to it's hard to make that first move. It's really hard. So I happened to be reading the Courier, and it had an ad in it for Collingwood that they were looking for connectors for the new program that they were. It's got my name on it. I got to go. So I went over there and I started there, and we used to go and make, put on displays and things and introduce people to the program. So, and I really enjoyed that. And yeah, and the friendly phone calling, that was a friendly visitor program until COVID came. And then it became a phone calling thing. I hadn't done it before, but I just, was given a few names, and I really connected with a couple of the women. They were just so isolated with only say very little getting out and doing anything. So that was good. I'm still closely in touch with one woman.
Wonderful.
I can't see myself anymore. I'm gone.
Oh, that's okay. We can see you just fine. And like you said, when you can't see anybody, you can't get nervous at all
That's
these people
okay.
listening,
It's all right. Don't worry.
But, so I just wanted to weave together a couple of things that were said, Marlene, with some of the things you said, as well as some of the things Darlena had said, around, connecting with other people, a little, it sounds like a little bit of a routine brought into your own life. and that people were, you know, counting on you. And you know, tell me a little bit more about how you feel when you volunteer. Or, you know, you both talked about having had some points of you know, depression and pretty significant life events that brought you down. Darlena, we're so sorry for the
Yeah.
passing of your daughter. So tell us more.
For me, I forget all my problems. When I'm volunteering, I concentrate on what I volunteer for. And like just enjoying to see people who are together and enjoying too. So
Yeah.
that is one of the purpose why I volunteer, because I could see and I could connect with people, and I could communicate with them and socialize with them, and I just forget all my problems.
It's nice to do that for a while, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Marlene, how about you? How do you feel when you're at Collingwood Neighborhood House and you're engaged in these volunteer commitments of yours?
I guess the first thing that I started to feel was a sense of belonging. You know, I wasn't isolated at home. I had a purpose, like Darlene said, and to go there. And then I got to know people a little bit, and you just get in the door and, you know, really try hard to make that first step. That's what I always had to do. And I also I stopped feeling lonely. I found I wasn't lonely anymore because I had something to do and go to and help other people. And yeah, it was nice seeing people that really benefited by having a volunteer, and it's mutual. I got just as much out of it as the person I was supposedly helping, and we helped each other a lot of the time. So that was very, 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 very special.
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to Zahra also share her volunteer experience, and it made me reflect on my own, and I think I've gained more in my volunteer experiences than I've given, and it sounds like, you know, for you the same, Marlene.
Yes.
You know, I'm conscious that we've got 25 people on the line, you know, probably all curious about volunteering, if they're not already engaged. And I want to bring Zahra into this question as well. But, you know, what do organizations need to have in place to support you to volunteer? Like, Marlene, when you think about your experience, or Darlena, when you think about your experience, what helps get you involved? What needs to be in place within these organizations that you're volunteering? Darlena, do you want to start?
Well, in Mount Pleasant, when I first came over there, I feel like I was welcome, and so I felt at home. And then I learned a lot of all the things that they are offering, and as a member, you take them free, and so I learned a lot from those free classes, and I just keep joining whatever is available.
Okay,
And
Marlene.
if they're looking for something that I know, then I would volunteer for that. Yeah, so like the pole walking club, because I knew the pole, how to use the pole, because before my knee replacement, I have to undergo training by using the pole to strengthen my muscles on my knee before surgery, to have a better result, like recovery. My recovery was really excellent. In a month, I didn't even use the walker.
Right.
Like I use the walker at home, and then I use first visit for the physiotherapy, I use a crutches, and then that's it. And
That's
then I
great.
use my cane.
And so Mount Pleasant Neighborhood House, it sounds like, was able to meet you where you were at, and
They actually purchase a lot of poles.
got the program
for my
going.
walking club. Yeah.
And Marlene, what about you? What does an organization need to have in place to get people involved in volunteering and engaging in all of the programs?
Right. Yeah, something that will allow people, like I said, to get out the door. Sometimes it means that, you know, you can encourage a neighbor and tell them you'll go with them the first time or two. That really helps, I found. And usually once people have tried it a couple of times, they get over the fear. I did anyway. I got over that fear of joining something new and new people. And you know how you get when you kind of isolated, you don't really think outwardly very much. It's all about that. And for me, I ended up joining a lot of the programs myself because I'm a senior, and so that was another way I did, you know, more things, and then that would lead to another volunteer position or someone I would meet, and it just sort of branched out. So it's just that first contact that is that whatever it is, whether it's a flyer, somebody comes and does it in service, something like that. And yeah, like that.
And so it sounds like, you know, even like some volunteer support within the organization so that, you know, those who are interested in getting involved have a touch point at the org. And Zahra, what comes up for you when you think about some best practices or what's, you know, worked really well in organizations for engaging volunteers?
So I think it's really important that organizations have mechanisms to really hear the feedback and the interests of people. And there's always a bit of it's almost like the dating game, you know, a prospective volunteer might be interested in something, the organization might be looking for something different. You need to make sure it's the right match. And so I think that's really important so that it's mutually beneficial. And I keep using the same phrase, but it is really important that it's a good fit. But I think also, and this is more for the people who might wear a bit of an administrative cap, but having having a team of staff that can support volunteers is really critical. And I think that, you know, most of the examples that we've talked about, there are staff people who can help volunteers to organize, who can make sure that, like, for example, we ran a food distribution program. We had to make sure people were there in order to pack the food hampers. If somebody wasn't available, we had to have a backup plan. We had to have another backup plan, and we had to have a third backup plan because otherwise people wouldn't get their hampers, you know? And so there does require a bit of background infrastructure and organization to make sure that volunteers are supported to do the best possible work that they can do, and also that they're well recognized. I think we all need to have time to feel celebrated, to feel valued and appreciated. And so that's really important for organizations to be able to do. So
yeah, that's great. I mean, this doesn't happen on its own. Volunteering doesn't happen on its own. It does take, you know, quite a bit of coordination and commitment by people like Marlene and Darlena and many on the call. And we're at time. I want, you know, in one or two words, the three of you to just share, you know, or to respond to anybody's anxiety or worry or fear about taking that first step in volunteering. What would you say to them? Darlena, you're smiling wide there. What would you say if somebody was nervous to start their volunteer journey?
Well, my advice to them is like you enjoy. Like for me,
Do what you enjoy.
Doing it. And actually, I have teach people to do how to teach line dancing. So now they're doing it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have fulfilled what my goal is. So I was able to look for people younger than me to be able to teach when I retire from teaching.
Okay, do something you enjoy and set up a succession plan.
Right.
I love it. I love it. Marlene, what would you say to somebody who is nervous about starting their volunteer journey?
I would say have courage, but you don't even have to do that. You just need to think that first step. If it takes you a while, work towards it slowly. When I was in the depression, I had a doctor who tried to coach me into going to do something, and he'd say, go to the first corner and back. Do that every day for 2 weeks, and then go to the rest of the block. And he got me going around the block and meeting all the animals, and just like changed my whole space. And I just, blossomed again from that. Oh,
Advice, just take that first small step.
yes.
Thank you. And Zahra.
My advice would be very similar. Start small. And I really like the suggestion that came through of going with a buddy. If it's a little intimidating to walk into a space on your own and meet a bunch of strangers and look for a new opportunity, go with somebody who you're comfortable with, or reach out one-on-one and set up a time to talk to somebody at the organization individually instead of walking into reception and trying to figure out how to be directed, And I think build on your strengths, know what you're good at, because all of us have talents. We all have wisdom to share. Build on your strengths. And then I think also look for opportunities to stretch and grow, because I don't think any of us are done learning. So
that's a perfect way to end off. And just a reminder to Zahra's calls to action, seek it out and vote. If you're not ready for volunteering, do your best to learn about who's leading, the various levels of government, and share your voice in that way. It's a really, really powerful tool. And reach out to those who may be new, to the newcomers, and maybe to those who are not as engaged as they might like to be, and be that support and share ideas with your neighbors and your community that way. Thank you, Zahra, Marlene, and Darlene for joining us today, for encouraging us to think about the many different ways we can engage in our communities. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences in volunteering and all that you do for your community, Darlene and Marlene and Zahra. I look forward to seeing you again. So much gratitude. Bye for now, everyone.
Inviting us.
Right.
Thanks for joining. See you at the next Move and Connect webinar. Bye for now.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye.